This is Mark. He's a composite character based on a pattern documented across the United States, the United Kingdom, and Western Europe. He's 34. He rents a one-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. He works from home, mostly. He has a phone full of contacts and hasn't had a real conversation in 4 days. He isn't depressed. He isn't antisocial. He just has nowhere to go. For most of human history, that sentence wouldn't have made sense. You always had somewhere to go. The pub, the church hall, the union meeting, the park with the benches that faced each other, the library that stayed open on Sundays, the community center at the end of the road. Those places are mostly gone now. And nobody voted for that. It just happened, slowly, in the background, while everyone was looking at something else. This is the story of how governments, urban planners, and corporations quietly dismantled the infrastructure of human connection, and what it's costing us. In 1953, a sociologist named Ray Oldenburg was growing up in a small town in Illinois. Decades later, he would give a name to something most people had always taken for granted. He called them third places. Not home, not work, somewhere else. A place with no agenda, no price of admission, and no reason to leave. A place where you might run into someone you know, or someone you don't. Where the conversation has no purpose except the conversation itself. Every functioning society in recorded history has had them. The Roman Thermopolium, the Viennese coffee house, the English pub, the American barbershop, the French tobacco, the corner store where you paid your bill and stayed an hour anyway. Oldenburg's argument, laid out in his 1989 book, The Great Good Place, was simple. Third places aren't a luxury. They're load-bearing infrastructure. Remove them, and something in the social fabric quietly tears. Nobody listened. Or rather, the people making decisions had other priorities. The post-war decades in the United States and Western Europe were built around a single organizing principle: the car. Cities were redesigned from the ground up to accommodate it. Motorways cut through old neighborhoods. Zoning laws separated residential areas from commercial ones. Suburbs expanded outward in every direction, row after row of houses with no center, no square, no place to simply be. The assumption baked into this model was that the home was enough. You had your family, your yard, your TV. What else did you need? What got left out of the calculation was everything that happened between houses. The walk to the shops, the bench outside the post office, the market on Saturday morning, the incidental, unplanned contact that stitched people into a community without them ever deciding to be part of one. Robert Putnam documented what happened next. In his 2000 book, Bowling Alone, he tracked the collapse of American civic life across 4 decades. Membership in unions, church groups, bowling leagues, parent-teacher associations, local political clubs, all of it fell. Not slightly, dramatically. Between 1975 and 2000, the number of Americans who reported having no one to confide in nearly tripled. Putnam's diagnosis was blunt. Social capital, the network of relationships that makes collective life possible, was being depleted, and nobody was replacing it. In the UK, the numbers are specific enough to feel like a crime scene. Between 1980 and 2018, the country lost more than half its pubs. Over 11,000 closed between 2000 and 2020 alone. In the same period, roughly 800 youth clubs shut down. Libraries, 800 closed between 2010 and 2019. Sure Start Children's Centers, which served some of the most isolated communities in the country, 1,300 gone since 2010. These weren't random closures. They followed a policy logic. Austerity, implemented after the 2008 financial crisis, targeted local government budgets. Councils had to choose what to cut. Culture, community, and social infrastructure lost to roads, waste collection, and statutory care. The people who made those decisions didn't think of themselves as dismantling social life. They thought they were balancing a spreadsheet. But the spaces they closed didn't just disappear. They left holes. And holes, it turns out, have consequences. This is where the story stops being about policy and starts being about biology. The human nervous system was not built for isolation. For 300,000 years, being separated from your group meant death. Your brain evolved to treat loneliness as a threat. The same neural pathways that process physical pain also process social exclusion. A study by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA in 2003 put people in an fMRI scanner and had them play a simple ball-tossing game. When they were excluded from the game, the brain region that lit up was the same one that activates when you burn your hand. Loneliness, in other words, hurts. Literally. And chronic loneliness does more than hurt. Julianne Holt-Lunstad, a psychologist at Brigham Young University, has published research showing that social isolation increases the risk of premature death by 26%. That makes it roughly as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. More dangerous than obesity. More dangerous than physical inactivity. In 2018, the UK government appointed the world's first Minister for Loneliness. The appointment followed a report commissioned after the murder of MP Jo Cox, who had made loneliness one of her central causes before she was killed. The report found that over 9 million people in the UK, more than the population of London, often or always felt lonely. The minister got a title. She didn't get a budget. Meanwhile, a different kind of infrastructure was being built. In 2004, Facebook launched. In 2006, Twitter. In 2007, the iPhone arrived and put both in your pocket. By 2012, the average American was spending over 2 hours a day on social media. By 2022, it was closer to 3. The timing matters. The physical infrastructure of social life was collapsing at exactly the moment digital infrastructure arrived to fill the gap. Silicon Valley didn't cause loneliness, but it made an enormous amount of money from it. The business model of every major social platform is based on engagement. The longer you stay, the more ads you see, the more money the platform makes. The features engineered to maximize engagement are the same features that make the platforms feel like connection, while delivering something fundamentally different from it. Sherry Turkle, a professor at MIT, has spent decades studying what happens when digital communication replaces face-to-face contact. Her conclusion, documented in Alone Together, published in 2011, is that people have become accustomed to a new kind of interaction, one that is always available, always editable, always controllable. Real conversation isn't any of those things. It's unpredictable, uncomfortable, and requires you to be present in a way that a screen never demands. The result is a generation, several generations now, who are more connected by every measurable metric and more lonely than any generation before them. Jean Twenge, a psychologist at San Diego State University, analyzed survey data from 1.1 million American teenagers between 1976 and 2017. The sharpest increase in reported loneliness happened after 2012, the year smartphone ownership crossed 50% among American adolescents. Back to Mark. He knows all of this, in the way you know things you read somewhere. He knows screens aren't a real connection. He knows he should call someone instead of scrolling. He knows. But knowing doesn't give him a pub to walk to. It doesn't reopen the community center 3 blocks away that became a luxury apartment building in 2015. It doesn't give him a union to join, or a church to lapse from, or a bowling league to quit. The infrastructure isn't there. And you can't willpower your way into infrastructure that doesn't exist. That's the part that gets lost in every conversation about loneliness, that frames it as a personal failing, a symptom of too much screen time, not enough effort, insufficient vulnerability. The framing puts the problem in the individual and takes it out of the system, which is convenient for the system. Some governments are starting to take this seriously. Japan appointed its own loneliness minister in 2021. Denmark has been building co-housing communities, intentionally designed neighborhoods with shared spaces, since the 1960s. Finland has invested in what it calls social prescribing, GPS referring patients not to medication, but to community activities, classes, and groups. These aren't solutions. They're patches on a problem that runs much deeper. Because the real issue isn't that people don't know how to connect. It's that the places, institutions, and rhythms that used to make connection automatic and unavoidable have been steadily, systematically removed. Replaced first by suburbs and cars and zoning laws, then by austerity cuts and property developers, then by screens that simulate connection while delivering something thinner. Loneliness is not a modern mood. It's a modern infrastructure failure. And Mark, sitting in his one-bedroom apartment with his phone full of contacts, isn't the problem. He's the evidence. If this video made you think of someone, maybe reach out. Not like, not a reply. Actually reach out. And if you want to keep pulling at threads like this one, the next video is already waiting for you. I'll see you there.